The witch has green skin, but everyone has made her ugly. In reality, she is a pure soul. The film starts in a fantasy world where dragons are flying through the sky and a fairy is landing in her ship. Everybody is looking towards the sky at the fairy coming to them. They realize the fairy is Glinda, holding a magic stick. She comes to bring them good news. The Wicked Witch of the West is dead. As Glinda is leaving, a child appears and asks her why wickedness happens. Glinda declares that many people find it confusing. Are people born wicked, or do they have wickedness thrust upon them? After all, the wicked also have a childhood, a mother, and a father, who had been the governor of Munchkinland. In a flashback, the Wicked Witch's father is going to work and singing to his wife that he doesn't want to leave her, but has to. After he leaves, the Wicked Witch's mother is seen with another man, an illicit partner, which is her secret. One day, the mother cries and screams as she gives birth. When the baby is born, she is very different. She is green. Everyone is shocked to see the baby, and her father shouts to take the child away. She has mysterious powers that can move objects, but everyone hates her. A Dulcie bear takes the child away and raises her well. She grows up, and one day Dulcie bear asks her to come and see her sister. Elphaba comes to see her little sister, who cannot walk. Elphaba tells her sister, Nessa, not to worry. Then, children come and start making fun of Elphaba, causing Nessa to cry. Angrily, Elphaba moves her hands and stones start flying, hitting the children. Their father complains about Elphaba making her sister cry, but Dulcie bear calms him down, saying he shouldn't blame her. In the present, Glinda is speaking while people carry a statue of Elphaba. They bring it to burn it. Fire covers the entire statue, and everyone enjoys the moment, singing and dancing. As Glinda prepares to leave, a girl approaches her and asks about Glinda and the Wicked Witch's friendship. Glinda confesses that their paths crossed a long time ago. Later, Glinda travels through the ocean in a fantasy land towards Shiz University. Her parents greet her and leave. A boy behind Glinda introduces himself as Buck from Munchkinland. Everyone welcomes and praises Glinda for her kind nature. Then, a green girl enters the university, and everybody stares at her. Elphaba notices their stares and asks what's wrong. Glinda says they are surprised because she is green. Elphaba confidently responds that she isn't sick and doesn't eat grass. Glinda offers to help Elphaba with any problems. Everyone appreciates Glinda, but Elphaba ignores her offer, focusing on her sister, Nessa, who is paralyzed but has a normal skin tone. Their father gives Nessa beautiful shoes as a gift, so everyone can see how lovely she is. Nessa is happy with the gift. Elphaba welcomes her sister to a new start in life. Their father orders Elphaba to stay with Nessa until she gets comfortable. Meanwhile, the principal introduces the staff, including Dr. Dillman, scholars of forestry and agriculture, Professor Munley of biological arts, and Dr. Newman, the head of the history department. After welcoming the students, Madame Marlborough is about to leave when Glinda introduces herself as Galinda Upland of the Upper Uplands and asks about room assignments. However, Madame has already assigned a private seat. Miss Nessarose introduces herself to Nessa and calls her tragically beautiful. Elphaba responds by calling herself beautifully tragic. The governor is concerned about Nessa, but Elphaba insists on staying with her sister. Miss Cotton takes Nessa to her room, and Elphaba tries to stop her, but fails. Angrily, Elphaba uses her magic to lift Nessa high into the air, and then brings her back down. Everyone is scared, and Nessa screams in fear. Madame Marlborough witnesses this from the corridor and comes forward, taking credit for what just happened. Everyone claps for Madame. She then asks which student would volunteer to share a room with Elphaba. Glinda raises her hand, surprising everyone. Madame appreciates Glinda's act and leads Elphaba to her room, holding her lovingly by the arm while everyone watches in shock. Madame asks how long Elphaba has had her talent. Elphaba explains that something takes over, and when it does, bad things happen. Madame tells her she has waited many years for someone like Elphaba and advises her to use her powers wisely. Madame wants to write to the Wizard of Oz immediately about Elphaba. Elphaba is overjoyed, dancing and singing through the fantasy world. When she returns to her room, she finds it filled with Glinda's belongings, leaving little space for her. This irritates Elphaba, and when she speaks to Glinda, the window glass shatters. The next morning, they attend a class taught by Dr. Dillman, an old goat. The students dislike him as he teaches about animals in earlier ages when they were free to speak and serve. Glinda introduces herself, but Dr. Dillman mispronounces her name due to his accent. Someone writes an offensive comment about Dr. Dillman on the chalkboard, frustrating him and leading him to dismiss the class. After the students leave, Dr. Dillman drops a vase of flowers in frustration. Elphaba stays behind to help him gather the flowers. He tells her to enjoy herself with friends, but she confesses she has none. Dr. Dillman offers her his friendship. After this, Elphaba is sitting in the dean's office. Madame Marlborough is testing Elphaba's powers using a coin. Elphaba tries hard but fails. However, when she becomes angry, glasses break, which Madame finds remarkable. Later, Dr. Dillman leaves the university, and Elphaba tries to stop him but fails. She follows him to a place where he is meeting other animals to discuss the cruel behavior of humans. Suddenly, they sense her presence. Dr. Dillman comes outside and finds Elphaba, inviting her inside. However, when Elphaba enters the room, all the other animals have left. After some conversation, Dr. Dillman advises her to return and rest. While leaving, Elphaba accidentally falls on the path as a boy riding a horse passes by. He introduces himself as a defense officer in the recent department, but Elphaba does not pay attention to him. The next morning, the governess addresses the students to welcome Mr. Fierro, cautioning them not to make eye contact with him. Meanwhile, Glinda prepares herself, dressing up to meet Fierro. When he arrives, all the girls are captivated by his looks, while the boys feel jealous. Glinda pretends not to care, but subtly tries to catch his attention. Everyone dances and enjoys themselves as Fierro sings and entertains them. Even in the library, they behave carelessly. Elphaba, however, leaves to study a book instead. Later, Fierro invites everyone to his party and proposes that Glinda light up the event with her presence. Buck asks Glinda to be his date, but she tactfully diverts him toward Nessa, suggesting that she deserves to have fun too. Buck agrees, willing to do anything for Glinda. Nessa is thrilled about Buck's proposal and shares her excitement with Elphaba. She expresses her gratitude to Glinda and wants to repay her kindness. As everyone prepares for the party, Glinda, with the help of her governess and peers, gets dressed. Elphaba enters the room, and they leave her alone. Glinda invites Elphaba to the party and gives her a peekaboo hat to match her outfit. At the party, everyone sings and dances. Elphaba approaches Madame Marlborough and whispers something to her. Madame later arrives at the party and hands Glinda a magic stick, as suggested by Elphaba. Touched by Elphaba's thoughtfulness, Glinda feels sorry for how she has treated her. When Elphaba arrives, people stare and mock her rudely. Despite this, Elphaba confidently dances in the center of the room. Glinda's heart softens, and she joins Elphaba, following her steps. This encourages everyone else to join in. Although Elphaba feels broken inside, she controls her emotions. When Glinda hugs her, tears flow from Elphaba's eyes. After the party, Glinda and Elphaba talk freely as newfound friends. Glinda shares her secret. She plans to marry Fiyero. She also asks about a green bottle under Elphaba's pillow, but Elphaba brushes it off, saying it belonged to her mother. Glinda becomes upset and lies down on the floor. Elphaba smiles at her charming antics and then shares her own secret. She explains how her father hates her because, when her mother was pregnant with Nessa, he feared the baby would turn out like Elphaba. He prepared milk flowers for his wife to drink, but the result was that Nessa was born prematurely with short legs, and her mother died. Her father blamed Elphaba for everything. Glinda feels sorry for Elphaba and promises to help change her appearance and make her popular. The next morning, they attend class for the last time with Dr. Dillman. Suddenly, security enters and harshly captures Dr. Dillman, putting him in a cage. Elphaba becomes furious at this and urges her classmates to take action, but no one supports her. Miss Cotton introduces a new professor, who brings a baby lion in a cage to class. Seeing the lion trapped enrages Elphaba even more. She slams the desk, causing flowers to fly into the air, and everyone except Fiyero faints. Elphaba and Fiyero free the lion and release it into the wild near a lake. Meanwhile, Madame Marlborough realizes that Elphaba is behind the incident. She writes a letter to the Wizard of Oz about Elphaba. Later, everyone gathers as Madame Marlborough addresses Elphaba. An emerald green flying balloon arrives at the university to deliver an invitation to Elphaba. The letter states that she is invited to the wizard's personal palace in Emerald City, and the invitation is non-transferable. Elphaba is overjoyed, hugging Madame Marlborough and Glinda. Later, an emerald green luxurious train arrives at the university to pick up Elphaba. Everyone cheers as she prepares to leave. Meanwhile, Nessa introduces Buck to her father. Elphaba is ready to depart when Glinda approaches her, complaining about Fiyero's indifferent behavior toward her. Shortly after, Fiyero joins them. Elphaba asks Fiyero to take care of the animals. Glinda also expresses her devotion by announcing to everyone that she is changing her name from Galinda to Glinda, in honor of Dr. Dillman's pronunciation. Fiyero hands a flower to Elphaba and bids her farewell. Glinda and others wave goodbye as Elphaba boards the train. Just as the train is about to depart, Glinda remembers she has a book to give to Elsie. She rushes to deliver it, and Elphaba persuades her to join her on the journey. Together, they travel through a magical wonderland until they arrive in the magnificent Emerald City, where everything glistens in shades of green. They enter the Grand Emerald Palace, guarded by peculiar monkey soldiers. The head guard escorts them into a large, lavish chamber. Elphaba becomes uneasy upon seeing a giant emerald elf-like figure looming over them. The figure speaks, startling them, but it soon lowers to reveal the Wizard of Oz, a friendly, unassuming man. He apologizes for scaring them and welcomes them warmly, acknowledging Glinda's unexpected presence. The wizard gives them a tour of his palace, which features color-changing pathways, miniature statues of himself, and even a display of Elphaba's childhood crafts. Madame Marlborough arrives to join them, which reassures Elphaba, who feels nervous. However, Madame Marlborough appears displeased with Glinda's presence. The wizard and Madame Marlborough introduce Elphaba to the Grimoire, a magical book of spells. Elphaba is eager to prove herself and casts a spell from the book. They suggest she use the spell on Christ, one of the monkey guards. The wizard explains that Christ has always wanted to fly like birds. Elphaba performs the spell, and Christ undergoes a painful transformation. Wings sprout from his back, and though the spell is successful, it causes him great distress. The wizard and Madame Marlborough praise Elphaba, but she feels deeply guilty for the monkey's suffering. She demands to reverse the spell, but Madame Marlborough reveals that spells from the Grimmery are irreversible. Realizing the wizard and Madame Marlborough's manipulative intentions, Elphaba grows angry. She confronts them, accusing them of exploiting her powers to create flying spies. She challenges the wizard to use the spell on himself, but he refuses. Furious, Elphaba grabs the Grimmery and escapes. Madame Marlborough orders Glinda to convince Elphaba to stay, but Glinda is conflicted. The wizard orders his flying monkeys to find and capture Elphaba, and they swarm the palace in search of her. Glinda searches for Elphaba and gets attacked by the monkeys. Guards chase after Elphaba, who takes Glinda with her and flees to the palace tower. There, Elphaba attempts to cast a spell to escape. At first, she struggles, but a broom suddenly flies toward her, allowing her to complete the spell. Glinda drapes a dark cloak over Elphaba's shoulders, symbolizing her transformation into the Wicked Witch. The two friends share an emotional farewell as tears stream down their faces. Guards burst in and capture Glinda. Elphaba leaps out of the tower, soaring into the sky on her broom. She sings triumphantly as she flies over Oz, declaring her independence. Glinda watches heartbrokenly from the palace. Back at the university, Madame Marlborough declares Elphaba a public enemy, branding her the Wicked Witch for stealing the Grimmery. She vows that Elphaba must be hunted down and captured. If you like this movie, then don't forget to subscribe the channel.